Do you keep commitments to others, but often let yourself off the hook when it comes to commitments to yourself? Well, on today's show, we're going to talk about how do you eliminate that and how you can even get better. Let's do it. Your mind is a beautiful thing, but if left unattended, it can get ugly real quick. If you're not constantly curating the content your mind consumes on a daily basis, then your surroundings will dictate your daily thoughts, habits, behaviors, and actions. This show has only one goal: to leave your mind more beautiful than it was when you arrived. Welcome to the Beautiful Mind Show. What's going on, guys? I'm Jason. Welcome to today's show. If you're joining us live, do me a favor and just comment in the comment section and say live. And if you're listening to us or watching us on replay, it is super good to have you here today, hanging out with us and talking about this challenge that I think comes up more often than most of us can think of. And my guest today on the show is Mr. Shawn Stearns, our partner in crime for all kinds of good leadership goodies and everything. So what's up, Shawn?
What's up, man? Beautiful Minds. We are back. What's going on, Jason?
Dude, always good to have you back on Beautiful Minds, hanging out with you, talking about this subject, because man, oh man, dude, this is it, right? I mean, when it comes to like leading yourself, Doug and I were just chatting about this the other day. We were just chatting about the idea that when you talk about leadership really starts with your own personal development, right? Is like, I remember, and I don't know about you, Shawn, like what your leadership journey has been, but like I went from never leading a damn person in my life other than like just hanging out and telling people how to like play directions on a board game or something, to like all of a sudden I had a team of like 15 people. I had a company, we'd grown from 3 people to 15 people up to 30 people. And I was somehow in charge of all of those people. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm not very good at this, right? That was my like leadership experience. And I'm like, I better get some training on how to be a better leader. And what I learned after going and get some training on how to be a better leader is like, I needed to be a better person first. Like that's where it started. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like I guess where my leadership would started, is when I was in the military. And in the military, you hit this certain rank. So as you advance, you hit a rank, and then as you rank up, it's just like, it's not like your choice to be a leader. It's like once you hit a certain rank, you're like expected. It's like, all right, now you're
those
leadership.
People are yours. Congratulations.
Yeah, like,
here's your platoon.
Yeah, here's the department. You're expected to lead it, whether you're ready or not. Like for me, I advanced because I was good at my job, and honestly, I was a really good test taker. So therefore, I advanced, and then next thing you know, I was like, oh wow, now I've got to lead all these people. All right, well, I guess let's figure this out. Like, and what I found was, like you said, like pretty similar. Like, look, I couldn't even lead myself at that point, and much less lead other people. So that was my first big lesson, was like, all right, well, I guess I got to get my stuff together and figure out how I can lead me so I can help. Now that I'm responsible for all these people, I think it's pretty important that I become more responsible myself.
Well, I think that's kind of like the realization of leadership. How many of you guys are in a leadership role? If you are, do me a favor and type leader or leadership in the chat here, because I think there's kind of a realization of leadership that happens, right? That was the first time I realized, like, oh, I'm actually considered a quote leader. But when I looked back on it, and this is what was really interesting, Shawn, when I looked back on it, I had always been put in a position of like team captain, or like when I played soccer, I was the goalie. When I played baseball, I was the catcher. And what I didn't know until much later in life is that they said the reason why we put you in all of those leadership positions is because you had a good knack for seeing everything that was happening and helping direct it to an outcome. I thought that was really interesting, because in all those positions that I'd ever been given, they were like, I went back and looked later and I'm like, oh, those were actually forms of leadership. Like when you're the, again, team captain, you're in the catcher position, you see the whole field, you're in the goalie position. Like those are those things that you start to see like, oh, wait a second, there are some leadership roles that started to happen. And I kind of gave myself crap and said I've never led before, but like I had been in leadership development programs and all these things because people had poked me and said, hey, I think you're a leader. And I'm like, nah. No, right? And so I think what we're talking about today is, do you let yourself off the hook, is talking about this personal development journey that I think every leader goes on. Is this idea that like at some point as a leader, you end up pushing other people really well and you show up for other people really big. But sometimes when you make a commitment to yourself, you let yourself off the hook. right? Is like you go, well, I was going to go work out today, but since I'm a leader and I got to take care of my team and my kids and my whatever, then I'll let myself down. Like the commitment to myself is not as important as the commitments I make to others. Shawn, you were just chatting about this. What is the research on this? And there's a term for it, isn't there?
Yeah. So this actually comes from, it's called the holistic psychologist, but the term is self-betrayal, right? And so the psychologist says self-betrayal. Yeah, right.
I self-betrayal all over the place. By the way, if that's you, type in self-betrayal. If you let yourself off the hook sometimes and you'd like to get better at it, do me a favor and say self-betrayal.
Yeah, right. That term stings a little bit, right? We don't think of it. We don't think about it that way when we're doing it, but it's actually the process that we're running on ourselves. And so the psychologist says that self-betrayal is actually a coping mechanism learned by most of us starting in our childhood, and it's where we betray our own needs, wants, emotions, and even our own boundaries at times. In order to gain the love and approval from another. And normally in childhood, that other is whatever form of parent figure we have at the time. And, so it's kind of where that's where that self-betrayal starts. And I think most of us aren't conscious of it, of how it's still going on right now, and how some of us on a daily basis are still, betraying our own needs, our wants, our own emotions, our own boundaries, again, in order to gain the love and approval from someone else.
Right. Now, there's a term that this is not a politically correct term, so be pissed in advance or turn off the podcast at this point. But I've heard this term before that I think just sums it up really well. It's called being an approval whore. Right? Being an approval whore. If you've heard that term before, feel free. You don't have to type that word in there, but just say I have. That'd be totally fine. But I think being an approval whore is really important. It is important. It's important to be aware of, right? Totally. Is that if you understand, well, look, I'm letting myself off the hook. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not eating right. I'm not getting my work done because I'm worried about some approval from somewhere else, from other people at my office, from other people at my household, could be your spouse, from my children, from my parents, from whoever, that you're trying to figure out, what is it that they're doing that you're trying to get that approval for? Because that whole point of this self-sabotaging behavior of letting yourself off the hook is to gain approval in some other area of your life and I'll throw this out there too, Shawn. I think some people wear that sacrifice like a badge of honor.
Oh yeah.
You ever seen that? It's like, oh, I'm too busy. And by the way, this is for my office. If you hear me talking about you, I am talking about you, and you know what I mean by this. But we had people who were in the office this week that were not feeling well. And I'm like, you need to go home. And I don't mean they had headaches, but I'm like, they had a headache. It wasn't that they had a fever or something like that. Had a headache. And they want to be troopers, right? They're like, well, I'm not going to go home. I'm going to tough it out. I'm going to do whatever. And I'm like, just go home. Just go home.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is we are wired in a way to say, I want to get more approval. And I want to show you that I'm going to show you that I'm tough, or that I'm going to do extra things so I can get extra approval. And, for that person who knows who they are, if they're watching this episode, you already got my approval. Go the hell home, right? It's okay. And we had to talk about that. But I think the idea is that we put ourselves in this position that we want to get approval for something or for someone else, and then we let ourselves off the hook, and it can be extremely detrimental to our reality.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, I think, we get in this process, and, of almost, it's like, if we do put ourselves sometimes first, or if we do put our self-care first, we have this mindset of then we now become selfish. We're no longer selfless, right? And we're always taught, most of us are taught, don't be selfish, make sure you help others, do for others. And so we get in this mindset, if we find, all right, we're going to do for others, especially if we're in a leadership position, or, you're talking about parents, spouses. A lot of our focus is to do a lot for other people and really put ourselves at the back of that list. And like you said, wearing it as the badge of honor is by me doing this, by me sacrificing my own needs, boundaries, emotions, it means I'm being selfless, which means I'm doing the right thing. Right. And, I can tell you,
I get that approval, and I get that adoration, and I get all those other things.
And from my personal experiences, with my fiance and having my children, I ran through this same problem where, the challenge of, with what I do, with work and traveling, and, there was a lot of times where, I wasn't home. And so I had a lot of guilt set in, a lot of guilt that I wasn't spending the time that I should be spending with my fiance and my kids. Meanwhile, I was helping others. So I felt like I was being selfless. And when I wasn't working, I was, in my mind, I was doing everything I could for them.
Yeah, here, look at me sacrificing over here. See, I am sacrificing and I'm doing all these things. Yeah,
totally. But what I found, the realization that I came to was that in order to be the process I was running by sacrificing my own needs and what I really needed and sacrificing my own self-care, what actually happened with me is that process kept me from being who I truly wanted to be for the people that I wanted to be at the most, right? The fiance that I wanted to be, the father that I wanted to be, because I was sacrificing so much of myself and what I truly needed to be doing for me, I never showed up as the person I wanted to truly show up for them.
Right.
And so that for me, that came that process. And what I found was the time that I was with them wasn't very beneficial because I wasn't the person they weren't getting the best of me when I was there.
Right.
And so what I found is, what the realization I had come to my kids, and my fiance was like, look, even if I get 3 hours a day with them, I want to be the person that shows up extraordinary for those 3 hours. Because what I've learned in my personal experience is though, if I show up that way for those 3 hours I'm there are way more impactful and beneficial than the 12 hours I may be away.
Yep. And I think that's it, right? Is you got to figure out like, what is it? Who do you need to be? And I think this is another thing, right? Is like, I got to look at it like this, is go, sometimes I see like, well, hey, if I don't go work out, I can go spend more time with my kids. Right? Totally. Like that would be an example. If I don't go to work out, I can spend more time with my kids because it's selfish for me to go work out and spend time away from my kids. But at the same time, I'm like, well, wait a second, but what kind of lump am I that can't play with my kids because I haven't worked out?
Right.
So I want to do this. I want to talk about how do you handle it? What do you do? And let's cover it. But we got to take a quick break. We're going to talk about a quick challenge. If you guys want to join us for our 7-day Beautiful Minds challenge, we're going to talk about that for a second. We'll be right back after this quick commercial. Ready? Let's rock and roll. See you guys in a few. We'll talk about how to handle it, how to solve it. Let's do it. Would you like to have an even more beautiful mind? Well, we'd like you to have one, and we actually created a 7-day Beautiful Minds challenge, which is a little bit of a choose your own adventure challenge for just 7 days. And I really think you can do anything for 7 days. It's definitely not easy, but it will be simple for you to get access to it. All you have to do is comment anywhere on this video or send me a message on social media that says 7-day, and I'll send you immediate access to not only our Beautiful Minds Facebook group, but also our Beautiful Minds challenge, where you can go through 3 different areas: your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health, and get challenges in each of those areas that'll help you get a handle on each of those areas inside your life to give you more control over what you want to do every single day. So do me a favor, comment 7-day or send me a message on any social media, and I'll make sure I give you access to our exclusive community group as well as access to the challenge. Thanks so much, and now back to the show. Welcome back to the show. Shawn and I are just discussing how you let yourself off the hook, why you let yourself off the hook, what are the reasons, and a lot of it has to do with trying to get the approval of others or love from other people by saying, look, I've made some sacrifices. And, I've done this one before too. I've seen this one is that I used to work with a client he was in Salt Lake City, and he was late. He was late for everything that he ever did. But his excuse was always, I was late because I was working on something that'll make everybody's lives better here. Like for his company. He's like, hey, well, I was working on payroll. I was working on this. I was working on that. Like, that's what you guys need me to do, right? So it's better that I'm late for you, but I'm working on this important stuff for the business. And like, he really thought that everybody would see him as like a martyr. And this was really important, right? Is they would see him as making this great sacrifice. And like, he was so busy and so overwhelmed that he was running behind. And he wanted to see the love and adoration for him running behind. But at the end of the day, they were just like, hey, bro, we just want you here on time. Is that cool? Can we just do that? Because it wasn't about the sacrifice he was making to do this other thing. It was like, I just want you to be there on time. And I think this idea of like, your kids want you to be there at the best version of yourself. Your people in your business want you to be there at the best version of yourself. Your family, your spouse, significant other, things like that, right? Everybody wants you to be there. So how can you handle it, Shawn? How do you start taking responsibility? Because I've seen this happen over and over again. For me, is like, I know I'll let myself down, but I know I won't let others down. So I'll just make a commitment to somebody else to make sure I get it done.
Yeah.
Right? But how do you start keeping the agreement to yourself?
Well, I think I think the first step is look how it started in the first place, right? It's like we, at some level, at some point in our life, this self-betrayal to us not keeping our commitments, us letting ourselves off the hook, we created that habit at some point in our life. So we just have to like a lot of things, we have to create the new habit. For example, it could be something as simple as you set your alarm clock, and instead of getting up when it goes off, you hit the snooze button. That right there, some people think of, oh, well, so what? It was 10 minutes of sleep.
I'm the only one who knows if I hit the snooze button, right?
Yeah, no one knows if I hit the snooze. But here's what we don't realize is the bigger picture, the ripple effect that has is I made the commitment to myself to wake up at this time. Instead, for whatever reason, whatever justification I gave myself, whatever reason I let myself off the hook, maybe I needed 10 more minutes of sleep, I hit the snooze button. At the moment, it may not seem like a big deal, but what we don't understand is the ripple effect is now you're creating a habit of letting yourself off the hook and breaking commitments to yourself. So I think the way to reverse it is to rebuild the habit, and honestly, just start small. If it's making one commitment, just commit to one thing that you're going to do for a week and do it. Maybe it's
that you normally let yourself off the hook from.
Yeah. And it could be as simple as, all right, not hitting the snooze for a week. It could be as simple as, first thing I'm gonna do when I wake up is 10 minutes of reading. It could be as simple as I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna drink a full glass of water. Something simple because what that's gonna do now is it's gonna create that new habit of making commitment and keeping it. And you start with one, and as you successfully do that, add another thing to it. Now go to 2 things, add another thing to it, 2 to 3. So as you successfully build these new commitments, and as you keep them, gradually start to add them on. It's not that thing like, Jason, we're not going to change it overnight, right? Like, oh, I'm keeping all commitments to myself. But again,
today's the day that I don't let myself down anymore.
Yeah, start with those small wins. And it's a habit that we've created at some point down the line, and that we're reinforcing sometimes on a daily basis. Like I said, hitting that snooze when you said you're going to get up, that's reinforcing the habit of self-betrayal.
Yeah. Shawn, I mentioned it kind of on the front end of this, is I was talking to somebody about this habit that I do, or not habit, but the way in which I handle this. So like, for example, if I said, like, cause I won't let other people down. Like I don't like letting other people down. And again, that's probably the approval whore part of me, that I don't let other people down, right? It's like, I don't want somebody to be like, Jason, let me down. Like that just doesn't happen. I will get it right, or I will do whatever it takes to make it right. And if I let somebody down, which occasionally happens, if I let somebody down, I will do whatever it takes to make it right. That's just me, right?
Yeah.
But what I'll do if I want to keep a commitment to myself, and I would encourage you to take this on, is make a commitment to yourself by making a commitment to others. Okay. So, and that almost 99% of the time gets it done for me. So like, for example, if I needed to create a course or a program or something like that, and I'm like, I've been stalling or dragging my feet on it. Like if I put a deadline on it and say, I will have, like, if I like sell somebody into the course before it's even written, or if I say, look, if I want to work out, like this is a literal thing I'm getting ready to do, is I want to get in the habit of working out and having a whole different regimen for what I'm doing, is what I'll do is I'll create a program where I will work out with other people, because I will show up if they're there, but I won't show up for me. So that's I think why CrossFit is such a big deal, right? Is like you show up with your friends. Like I got a buddy, he's in a CrossFit group. They meet every 3 to 5 days a week at 5 a.m. every day. They meet up at a park, and he's like, dude, I won't let those guys down. It's like all of a sudden, and I used to do this all the time, going back to team sports, like I was mentioning, played baseball and played soccer. It's like I would never miss a practice because I'm letting other people down, right? And same thing is like, work with a group of people, get together in a group that do the things that you want to do, because whatever you can do to apply that pressure to yourself to get that done, that'll help you to start putting yourself in a place where all of a sudden, instead of you being the person who's like, well, I'll let myself off the hook, but I'll do the commitment. Start with committing to others. That's step 1. Or start with doing small commitments for yourself. Or here's the other thing I would say, make a list of all the things that you've let yourself off the hook for. Maybe it's food, maybe it's fitness, maybe it's, I don't know, could be laundry. Could be paying your bills. It could be, signing up for the thing that you know would be good for you, or going to the doctor, or
going on dates.
Yeah. It could be going out and actually meeting somebody. You're like, I just don't go out. COVID, there's no way to meet anybody, like all this, whatever it is. Figure out what that thing is and write a list of all the stuff you've let yourself off the hook for. And here's what I would do. Cross out the things that you're okay letting yourself off the hook for. Like, cross them out and be like, you know what? I'm just not doing that. I'm okay not doing that. But if they're like things that need to get done, don't cross those out. Okay. But if there are things that you need to get accomplished, then circle 2 things on that list and say, from this day forward, I'm never going to let myself off the hook for those things. Never going to do it. I'm not going to betray myself with my finances. I'm not going to go on Amazon shopping sprees every single day. Maybe it's that you want to have just a 5-day sprint where you don't buy something off Amazon Prime. I don't know what it is, but I know for all of you, you've got something like that. And if you're brave enough and willing to, I'd love for you to type in the chat and just say, what's something that you don't want to let yourself off the hook for again? What is it for you? I know for me, I'm starting actually this weekend, I'm doing some fasting and doing a revised eating plan, because I'm just like, I just got to get it back together where I want it to be in my life. I got a lot of things together, but there's a few that I need to get better at. That's one. So this weekend, I'm starting some fasting and some revised meal planning stuff. And like, that's my step. What is it for you? Type it in the chat. I want to know. And if you're listening on the recording, you're listening live, just write it down, right? Write it down, use it, and see what's possible. Shawn, anything else? Yeah, eating clean. That's a great one. Thank you, Skyland, for putting that in there. Anybody else want to put that in there? Do me a favor, type it in. Shawn, what else do you want to say about this topic and letting yourself off the hook? Anything else you want to say before you wrap, man?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, for example, one of mine, by the way, one of the things that I want to stop letting myself off the hook for is using the phrase, I'm too tired when I get home.
Dude,
because I'm too tired to play. I'm too tired.
Yeah.
Because, and I think to kind of end this topic, I just think it's such a big topic because, with our clients in the leadership program that we have, this is a huge topic that comes up, is this topic of not holding agreements, self-betrayal, not taking care of ourselves. And I think there's so much like overwhelm, anxiety, and frustration from people because they're not going up the way they want. But what I've learned is a lot of times all of that stress, overwhelm, anxiety is self-induced because we're betraying ourselves by not doing what we should be doing to have us become the people that we want to actually become. We're keeping us from being who we want to be and who we want to show up as. And so to eliminate all that stress, frustration, the overwhelm, the anxiety, we've got to start keeping commitments to ourselves so that we can start showing up as the people we want to show up for, the people we want to show up for the most.
Agreed. And the last thing I want to say, because it's on exactly that note, Shawn, is after you circle the things you're never going to let go, write a list of the people you want to do it for.
Yes.
Right. 100%. Write a list. If you're like, you know what, this is for my kids, this is for my wife, this is for all those other people, and put that pressure on of like, I'm doing it for them, but I'm also doing it for myself. And I think, again, just say like, that's a pressure I'm putting on that is external, but not for the approval of them, but for the love of them. And that's when you move from being an approval whore to being just, loving on those around you. And I think it makes such a huge difference. So thanks guys for being on the show today. Shawn, as always, it's always good when I get some Shawn time, get you on the show and hang out here on Beautiful Minds. So dude, thanks for being on today. Thanks to all of you guys who listen to us live or watch us live, and those that are listening later, please do me a favor and share the show with your friends if you got value out of it today, because that helps us get the word out and get help to more people. Thank you so much. Shawn, as always, bro, thanks to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, guys. You guys take care.
All right, guys. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you want to get access to our 7-day Beautiful Minds Challenge, you can either comment below and just say 7-day, and I'll shoot you the information so you can get immediate access to that, or find me on any social media and just send me the message 7-day, and I'll make sure I get that out to you right away. And if you really enjoyed today's show, it would do me a huge favor if you went online, whether it was Spotify, Pandora, or iTunes, or any sort of podcast platform that you can find us on, and search for The Beautiful Minds Show, subscribe to our channel, and then make sure you give us a rating. Every time you give us a rating, it helps us get more eyeballs on our show and help more people have a more beautiful mind. Thanks again for joining us.